Alrighty, this week we're going to be taking a look at Temptation's Ballad, a game for adults who are adult, 18 plus only, etc. I know this one gets requested a lot. I think my logic for putting it off for a while was because I covered Repeat already, so whenever there's multiple that are made by the same creator, I feel like I should space them out a bit instead of just covering them all back to back, but that's made up logic. And more recently, there hasn't been a lot of episodes because I was finishing a video essay and was just insanely busy between that and Noel playing games, and just didn't have bonus time. The morning sun bled across the sky like a festering wound. I shielded my eyes, pain splitting through my skull like a hot knife as I stumbled through the dark alleyway. Confusion slowly surfaced beneath the pain. I blinked through unfamiliar eyes and struggled to regain bearings of my surroundings. Bird? Where am I? I glanced at the posters plastering the dingy alley advertising local festivities in the coming days. No, this wasn't supposed to happen. How long have I been asleep? If the Firefly Festival was mere days away, a week then, perhaps more? That could only mean one thing. This flesh has developed a fault. Fatigue weighed like lead across every limb, every muscle. I could feel my body scream in protest as I struggled to step out of this musty alleyway and into the city proper. This long, unintended nap certainly threw a wrench in the works. No matter. There was still time to salvage my plans and put everything back in motion. I sucked in a deep breath into my lungs and lifted my head, blinking wearily against the rising sun. The city of Axia. My city. Famed across the kingdom for its advanced arcane research, its vast array of hard-working craftsmen, and home to the esteemed royal family of old. Axia was a noble city, indeed. Some dare say it was even the center of the world, favored by the Creator in her infinite blessings. Others would call it a monument to man's hubris, but I took in a deep breath and looked across the bustling streets, allowing the sky's golden hues and cooling winds to wash over me. Whatever people say, none can deny its beauty. My chest fluttered with fondness as I leaned against the alley wall, while slowly taking in the view. That is a lot of feather to drag around. I get there, peacock, but damn, you have to live with all that. I wonder what percentage of peacocks in this setting would just get rid of it. Just like, nope, not dealing with that every day. I love this world, and this city, at its so-called center. I truly did. And yet, this world is rotten. Finite. I reached out my feathered hands and grasped the morning rays between my fingertips. Resolve burned within me, brighter and fiercer than any pain this decrepit body could inflict upon me. I hereby swear, with what little strength yet flows in my veins, this rotted, decaying world will be made better, and I pity the fools who dare stand in my way. Chapter 1. The Liar, the Commoner, and the Chosen One. Marauders District. Bonebreaker Mercenary Company. Guard building. Guild building. Important difference. So is that the villain? And we're not going to be playing as them immediately? Let's see. Well, calling it a guild building was a little generous. This place was more of an abandoned tavern that was haphazardly renovated into a semi-usable living space. Mugs of mead littered the broken-down bar, along with the racks of weapons and overdue bills from the Adventurers Guild. It was an unorthodox company, to say the least. The walls of the old tavern, or rather, the Bonebreaker Mercenary Guild, were constantly droning with the shouts of drunk mercenaries clattering weapons and barely hidden sensual moans rumbling from the supply closets. It was highly recommended that visitors avoided the backroom supply closets lest they find themselves an awkward sight. Or some fun. Take your pick. The Bonebreaker Mercenary Company has always been just like its captain and namesake. Everyone's here to kick ass and have a good time. Or rather, almost everyone. The mirthful ruckus of shouting drunk mercenaries was audible even in the attic, albeit slightly muffled. It was just quiet enough for Cole to practice his lute in relative peace. The young hyena strummed the tattered strings on his instrument, humming softly over the intoxicated clattering from downstairs. He was technically supposed to be doing weapons training at the moment, though Cole was never one to simply do as he was told. He plucked a C sharp and immediately winced at the sound. Out of tune already? This whole thing ain't gonna last much longer. Ah, shit. There was an ugly twang followed by a sharp yelp. As Cole had tightened the pegs of his decrepit lute, a string snapped and whipped painfully against his finger. He winced and suckled his thumb in dismay. Bollocks. Looks like that's the end of practice for today. How the hell am I gonna get another lute without Papa finding out? Suddenly the entire building shook with a resounding boom, and the heavy entrance doors were kicked open. The guild rumbled with whooping and hollering cheers from the dozens of mercenaries in the lobby. Cole's shoulders slumped as he slowly forced himself onto his feet. And he's back. That is the least clothing maybe ever. Like, I'm genuinely... I don't think I can unpack its mechanics. The din of hollering men was enough to rattle the mugs on the bar tables. The boss is back. That's our man. Marrow! How's your job? There you go. And this is why I knew this game existed, because there's a character named Marrow, and so when you're looking up yourself periodically, trying to even find art and things like that, or any other time, you quickly realize that there happens to be another hyena named Marrow in a visual novel. Uh-huh. But then I ended up covering Repeat first for whatever reason. I don't know. Shut your traps. The room immediately fell silent. Marrow Bonebreaker grumbles as he stomped... Grumbles current tense but stomped past tense. Whoops. Marrow Bonebreaker grumbles as he stomped through the door, his massive shadow darkening the entire room as he turned towards the bar. A few dozen mercenaries spilled into the lobby, along with their captain, each slinging various steel axes and swords over their shoulders. Marrow's glass eye tinkled in the dim room as he walked, his very presence commanding the attention of every person in the vicinity. I turn this down a little bit. The game got so much louder so quickly compared to the last song. He snatched a mug of mead from one of the mercenaries and downed it in one gulp before slamming it down on the bar table. The large, towering hyena wiped his muzzle with a disgruntled sigh. Horrible. Utterly rubbish and disappointing. The moment those bandit sauce bonebreakers approaching, they dropped their weapons and surrendered while shaking their little boots. The old lady down the street could have put up a better fight than those sorry sods. Weren't folks saying the city was supposed to get more rowdy now? That the king and queen kicked the bucket? Bandits my ass. My axe hasn't tasted a good fight in years. The other mercenaries in the lobby grumbled in disappointment. Ah, shucks, Captain. You mean you didn't even get to fight? A sly grin suddenly stretched across Marrow's face as he thumbed the handle of his great axe. Well, I didn't say that now, did I? A few of those measly bandits were stinking mages. Shot a few little fireballs at us thinking they were smart. Marrow licked his lips. Nothing quite as satisfying as clobbering a few magic-y nitwits to the ground. Still doesn't make up for the disappointing fight, though. A voice suddenly mumbled from behind the heavy entrance doors. Really now? The bandits were arrested, and we got paid. Isn't that enough? Ah, what's the point of being a merc if I can't even have fun kicking ass? The front doors creaked open as another shorter hyena heaving a large sack through the guild's entrance. Hamish, the mercenary captain's right-hand man, rolled his eyes as he lugged the heavy bag of coins onto the bar. The money. Stable job. This big shack that we're all living in. It's a guild building. Hamish rolled his eyes and ignored his overly cheerful captain. And the fact the city watch ain't clamoring to arrest us anymore. That should be plenty reason enough. Ah, lovey. There you go, talking sense again. Can't you just let me complain in peace for once? Hamish tapped his chin thoughtfully. Nah. Somebody's gotta keep you in line. Psst, you ain't fun anymore. Hamish tried to hide a fond smile as he turned towards the dozens of other mercenaries in the room. He plucked a handful of copper and silver coins and shoved them onto the bar. By the way, everyone, Captain says drinks are on him tonight. The entire guild erupted into cheers and whoops and hollers as all the rowdy mercenaries raised their tankards in glee. Yeah! You're the best captain you could have ever asked for, boss. You bet your ass I am. Marrow chuckled and threw a... All of my cadences are wrong. You bet your ass I am. Marrow chuckled and threw a loving arm around Hamish's shoulders as they settled down at the table. A few of the mercenaries working at the bar eagerly passed more tankards of ale to the pair of hyenas. Pail of hyenas. Marrow grinned and took another deep gulp. Gonna make our own fun in this boring-ass city, now don't we? Speaking of which... Hamish shot Marrow a withering look as he felt a large hand snake down the small of his back and fiddled teasingly at the hem of his breeches. Little early in the morning for this, don't you think? Ah, lovey, the job was so boring. You don't mind cheering me up a little, don't you? Ow. Marrow felt a sharp pinch and retracted his arm with a pout. Maybe later. Didn't you have something you need to do? Something to do? Marrow's eyebrows perked up in realization. Oh, right, how could I have forgotten? He leapt up and began rummaging furiously through the sack on the bar. Marrow glanced up at the nearby mercenaries getting deep into their cups. By the by, have any of y'all seen my boy? I think I heard him strumming his darn lute in the attic again. He should really let loose and join us at the bar more often. Marrow's chest swelled with pride. Ah, there's my talented little lad, always refining his hobbies. Y'all could learn a bit from his dedication. Marrow turned towards the stairway and stomped his feet. Cole? Cole! Cole, come down, your papa's got something for you. Yeesh. And here he is, my darling boy. You know I can hear you without all the hollering, Papa. Ah! Cole yelped as a massive hand clapped him in the back and sent his tiny frame face first into the floor. Ah, Papa, watch it. My shoulder's still not recovered yet. Aw, sorry there. Just can't help but get excited from seeing my pride and joy. Especially when he's so dedicated to practicing his passion so damn much. How's that little lute of yours treating you? Oh. Cole's shoulders slumped. It, broke when I was practicing this morning. Weren't you supposed to be doing weapons training this morning? Not now, Hammy. I'm trying to be a positive influence here. Now, where was I? Surprise, my boy! Marrow grinned gleefully as he pulled something large from inside his sack. Cole felt his jaw drop. He watched his father slowly unwrap a brand new glistening lute, furnished brilliantly with handsome dark wood. He hesitantly reached out to grab it, his paws gingerly tracing the cool, smooth surface. Is this for me? Thank you so much, Papa. You really shouldn't have. Marrow barked with laughter and slapped his son on the shoulder. Nonsense. Anything for my darling boy. The Bonebreakers have got a lot of jobs lately since the king and queen croaked. I had to spend all that coin on something. A wave of warm giddiness washed over Cole's chest as he gently strummed the strings of his new lute. Sharp and cheerful notes rang out, perfectly tuned. Cole laughed, delighted. This is incredible. Thank you so much, Papa. Like I said before, anything for my darling son. Cole suddenly grimaced as he glanced at his father. Oh, great. He's getting one of those daydreaming looks in his eyes again. One day you will grow into a great man who will take over the Bonebreaker Mercenary Company as my successor. Ah, the speech. Cole stood up straight and tried his utmost to resist rolling his eyes. You will grow to be a strong mercenary, and an even greater man than I. The Bonebreaker's legacy will be yours to lead down the glorious path it is destined to follow. People will sing stories of your deeds for ages to come. Yes, I've memorized this whole bit, Papa. Not to be pessimistic or anything, but have you noticed that not to be pessimistic or anything, but have you noticed that your son is like almost half the size of the smallest merc in the company? I can barely even lift an axe. Worry not, my dear boy. I understand your pain. I was a late bloomer as well. Yet here I am, the captain of the greatest and most fearsome mercenary company in all of Axia, and the kingdoms beyond. Late bloomer? Papa, I'm like 23 now. I'm pretty sure the chances of a growth spurt are miraculously low at this point. Cole gulped as his father leaned down on one knee and placed a supportive hand on his shoulder. His face was brimming with such faith and pride that it was hard to look at directly. No matter the odds, know that I believe in you. You're gonna show the world what you're made of one day, and the world will watch in awe. Remember, boy, you are the son of Marrow Bonebreaker. Cole felt an uncomfortable wriggling of doubt rising in his throat, but at the sight of his father's intense and loving confidence, he swallowed it back down. Sure, Papa. One day. Marrow's laugh bloomed through the building. Cole yelped as a playful hand ruffled his hair. That's my boy. Now, like anything in life, that day won't come without putting some work into it. That's why I think it's high time you started taking on mercenary jobs again. What? But I still haven't recovered from the injuries from my last job. Cole jabbed a finger desperately at the bandages hanging from his shoulder. It's been weeks. If it ain't getting better with you cooped up at home, it'll get better if you go out for some air. Marrow's voice turned gentle. I ain't asking you for the world, boy. Not until you're ready. We'll take it one step at a time. For today, just go out and take one job listing from the Adventurers Guild and bring something home for your work. Be it a few coppers or vast heapings of treasure, know that I'll always be proud of what you do. The life of a great man is a long one. There's no need to rush, but we should always be moving forward. A mix of affection and dread rolled through Cole's chest as he glanced between his father's brimming pride and the new furnished lute in his hands. His grip tightened on it as he sighed. Right, Papa. I'll do my best. Atta boy. Go show him what you're made of. And if you run into any cowardly magic users out there, give them a good throttling for me. You know what I always say about magic, Cole sighed. It's the tool of the weak and the spineless. Ha! And don't you forget it. So don't go turning out to be a magic user specifically, or this story's gonna get kinda queer-coded, so... Nothing more satisfying than clobbering a wizard across the face while they're crying, "My spells, my spells." Right, of course. Anyway, I gotta go show the world what I'm made of. I'll see you later. Take care, my son. Cole grabbed his loot and scuttled toward the door. Scuttled. His gaze was trained at his feet, far from the beaming and loving grin on his father's face. Is he going to be a magic user? Is that where we're going? Cole had scarcely taken a step outside when he was pulled aside by Hamish, who was wearing his usual gruff look of concern. Gee, Cole, you get to have two dads? Cole mentally groaned as he was dragged into the quiet supply closets in the back of the tavern, guild building. Do hyenas do Mpreg? He chuckled as at the usual sounds of low moans rumbling from many of the closets. All the men in the Bonebreaker's mercenary company knew what happened back there. Wow, yeah, dragging me straight to the supply closet's a little direct, ain't it? Plus, aren't you chummy with Papa? I hate to be an awkward homewrecker. Hamish's eyebrows shot up so quickly they almost left his face. What? No, that's not what I... Ugh. Hamish muttered under his breath and slammed a fist against the thin wooded walls. Quiet down. The moans from the various closets grew slightly more muffled and quiet. Just slightly. Someone from the closets whispered a very quiet, "Sorry," followed quickly by a chorus of snickers. Bunch of horny twats. Anyway, on to the real business. Ah, pain. Is it a fake bandage? Is he just pretending to be wounded longer than he really is to not have to actually go out and practice because he doesn't think he can live up to the legacy? Is that what's going on here? Meanwhile, he's playing lute, so it's kind of giving up the game a bit. You're in trouble. Hamish is smarter than Marrow. Hamish suddenly swiped at Cole's bandaged shoulder. Hey! Cole stumbled backwards in shock. Hamish's eyes narrowed. The bandages abruptly faded into nothingness, like wisps of heat on a hot summer day. Underneath, Cole's shoulder appeared completely uninjured. The air buzzed. It was faint, but it was unmistakably the soft glow of magic. A minor illusion, huh? When did you learn a trick like that? Cole's breath hitched. He felt his stomach drop. I can explain. Please, don't tell Papa. Shh. A hand rested gently on his shoulder as Cole fought the urge to flee. Hamish sighed. Relax, Cole. I'm not here to get you in trouble. Not everyone's as old-fashioned as your father. Honestly, most of the boys in the Bonebreakers are fine with magic. Cole let out a breath of relief and scowled. Not liking magic is old-fashioned? I feel like this is actually doing a queer-coded thing. Which, I don't know, go and watch my video essays if you don't know what I'm talking about, or if you're questioning the idea that you can do queer-coding in a story about gay people, because, like, there's just stuff you can do there. There's themes. You can have queer subtext in a story where literally everyone's gay in it anyway. If you were fine with it, you could have just let me alone. Hamish sighed and rubbed his temples. I'm just worried about you, kiddo. I think it's high time you have a long conversation with your pa. Cole's scowl deepened and he crossed his arms defensively. What do you want about? Hamish scratched his chin and closed his eyes, as though cautiously preparing his next words. Are you sure you really want to take over the... No, bleh. Are you really sure you want to take over the Bonebreakers when you're older? What? Anger surged through Cole's chest as he gripped the cold, wooden handle of his new lute. Of course I do. Papa didn't raise a disappointment. I'm not saying that you're a disappointment. Are you? What exactly are you trying to say, then? Cole took a step forward, the fur on his mane standing on end. Did not expect that name. Is it Clody or Collodi? Collodi. Collodi. Collodi? Collodi. Collodi. I am Collody Bonebreaker, son of Marrow Bonebreaker, the most famous and feared mercenary in all of Axia, and the kingdom beyond. I don't need Papa's little lackey to tell me what to do. A heavy, tense silence hung over the hallway as Cole glared into Hamish's unflinching eyes. Finally, the older man sighed. All right, then. You'll follow your father's footsteps. What about your magic? Oh, if you're trying to blackmail... Hamish held up his hands. No, I'm trying to hold a conversation, kiddo. I just think that most of your talks with your father have been rather one-sided. Wouldn't it be healthier if you sat down and took some time to talk about how you really felt? At the very least, let him know about your talents. Magic is the tool of the weak and spineless. And you're neither weak nor spineless. You've got real skill with that magic of yours, kid. Are you just gonna keep lying and hiding it from your pa to live up to his ridiculous expectations? Yes! There was something satisfying about getting under Hamish's skin. Papa's right-hand man usually held himself with unwavering sternness. Now he was just massaging his temples in frustration. You certainly have your pa's hard-headed stubbornness. Are you truly determined to pretend to be a big axe-swinging barbarian for the rest of your life when you clearly don't want to? Papa is Marrow Bonebreaker. What are people gonna say if they find out that the strongest mercenary in the land has a weak little pipsqueak of a son that can barely swing a sword? I'll fake it till I make it, somehow. Lying to Papa feels better than disappointing him. If Marrow's ego was truly that fragile, I'd smack him out of this guild myself. Go talk to your father, Cole. He loves you dearly, magic or otherwise. I'm sure he'll understand. Yeah, sure. And I'll be the next king of Axia, Cole thought to himself as he stomped past Hamish with a huff. So Cole's probably immature and Hamish is probably right. What stands out to me about the story is that it sets up the idea that Cole's not supposed to be practicing loot right now. And like, dang it, how do I fix this without getting caught or whatever? And it's like, oh, at that point you're thinking like, oh, his dad must really not like him be doing, like having an interest in the arts. He's supposed to just be a warrior or something, right? Like even before you actually learn about the whole, everything else, like the mercenary context and the idea of legacy. So you're like, okay, he's got to hide this habit of this hobbit. He's got to hide this habit of his away. Then you find out not only is Marrow supportive of the loot playing, he literally is arriving with the new loot in that scene. So you're like, oh, huh. It's like he keeps talking shit about magic, and so he's got his own bias, but he might actually recalibrate if he found out that his son did it. Because he's apparently really supportive of him playing loot and other stuff that isn't like directly in favor of being this like cool masculine warrior. He's playing an instrument alone in the attic instead of training, and he's just like, and he literally says like, quiet, I'm trying to be a positive influence here. So he sees some element of being a good dad as being supporting this kind of stuff, even though it's not the specific thing he is trying to do. So I feel like the Hamish might be more correct, but it's hard to know without actually knowing what happens later. That is just a whole jockstrap. That's honestly like more reliable clothing than everyone else we've met so far. But yeah, everyone's got a really specific like two like wings of fabric on the side and then just covering in the middle, and then everything's just out besides that. I guess in every way this character is more clothed than everyone else because they're wearing a cape and pants. Well, chaps. Most of pants. It's most of the pants. They're horny pants. The wooden floors creaked as the older hyena turned to follow him. This guy's worse than a mother hen. I gotta get out of here. Cole glanced up with a smirk. Speaking of uncomfortable conversations, when are you gonna finally propose to Papa for real? Or vice versa? Whatever calm collectiveness Hamish held immediately collapsed as his face erupted into a harsh red hue. Excuse me? That's none of your business. Cole smirked as he shoved past the sputtering hyena. I'm just saying, maybe once you're officially my second, lesser dad, I'll actually listen to your nonsense. Maybe. Anyway, ta-ta, I've got an adventuring job to worm myself out of. With that, Cole stomped out the door and left a sputtering Hamish behind. Where we're going? The Market District, Sparrow's Roost, Inn and Tavern. We've got a whole designated map. Somehow this is all planned out, it would seem. Meanwhile, across the city, at an actual functioning tavern, a young badger slumped his way home with heavy shoulders and even heavier heart. And a massive chest. I should have said heavier chest, goddammit, that was the joke. Sid Shrikewood's face was grim as he stumbled home to the tavern that his mother ran, returning home empty-handed yet again. And this time, he returned bright and early in the morning. The day had barely begun, with cool morning dew settling on the wet grass below. As Sid approached the steps of Sparrow's Roost Inn and Tavern, his eyes lit up at the sight of the familiar face waiting for him. Hey, Betsy, how's business at the tavern going today? Hope the customers have been treating you well? Sid sighed and plopped down a large stone next to his longtime friend. As for me, well... The morning just started and it's already a shit day. Nope. The morning just started and it's already a shit day. For some reason, that didn't register that as being dialogue. He buried his face in his hands. Got kicked out of my scribe apprenticeship. Third day on the job. That's gotta be a new record. Mom's gonna kill me at this rate. What am I supposed to tell her? Sid shook his head and grabbed a nearby broom lying next to Sparrow's Roost Inn's entrance. A lot of difficult S's to do in a row without pausing for a moment. He absentmindedly began sweeping the dirt and grime off the tavern steps. Rhythmic chores always helped him clear away dreadful thoughts. The chores also helped relieve some extra work from his mother's already massive workload, which was already a plus. Sid's mother was always working, bustling about in the tavern and serving customers day and night. His heart lurched painfully in his chest when he returned home every night to see her slumped over a chair in exhaustion. Her hands had grown coarse with calluses, and she had complained of back pain as of late. Naturally, Sid often showed up at the Sparrow's Roost Inn and Tavern to help out whenever he could. Usually because he got kicked out of yet another apprenticeship job. Sid sighed and paused his sweeping to look down at Betsy. She silently glared back at him, ever the good listener. Hey, Betsy? This is like the 5th apprenticeship I got fired from. I really want to make Mom happy and get a cushy job, but none of this feels right for me, you know? Is Betsy a cat? Or an inanimate object? An amused chuckle left Sid's throat as he tried to imagine himself as a scribe. Me? Cooped up in a cushy commoner job? I mean, I'm a commoner through and through, but always dreamed of something bigger, you know? Sid twirled his broom with practice swings, slashing at the air enthusiastically as though it were a sword. Oh. Now, Sid the Adventurer, that rolls off the tongue way better. These two need to change lives, apparently. Is that where we're going? They need to trade. Going out into the world to perform heroic deeds, amassing glory, saving the day like the champions in storybooks. What do you think, Betsy? It's a frog. I was on the right track, but no. Betsy, as usual, did not answer for the simple fact that she was a toad. Even ever the good listener, she continued staring up at Sid with deep, understanding eyes as she perched on her usual basking rock. Right? I'd make a fantastic adventurer. Bards will sing of my legend one day, just you watch. Yeah! Ha! Sid swung his broom sword in the air with wild and brash sweeps. He imagined fending off an invisible foe as he jabbed and thrust his heroic weapon to and fro. Yeah! Take that! Whoops! His foot suddenly slipped on wet cobblestone, and he tumbled forward with the grace of a damp log. As Sid tumbled, he lost his grip on his very heroic broom sword and yelped as he soared in the air. Right as the tavern doors creaked open. Sid, dear, are you? Ouch! Sid's mother winced as a flying broom handle smacked her right in between the eyes. Mom! Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. He rushed to his mom's side as she gingerly rubbed her bruised forehead. Ilya looked up at her son with an exasperated yet fond smile as she pinched her cheeks. It's quite all right, dear. Your mother is made of tougher stuff than this. Were you pretending to be a sword fighter with the broom again? Because the windows were open and the whole tavern could hear and see you. What? They saw? Sid's ears flattened against his head as he flushed pink. That was a private conversation. With your frog? Ilya glanced down at Betsy doubtfully. Excuse you? Betsy is a noble toad and a good friend. Sid watched as his mother sighed deeply and buried her face in her hands. It looked like she was doing her best to keep a straight face and avoid chuckling. Or crying. Sid couldn't tell at this point. Oh, sweetheart. I heard your conversation earlier. Were you fired from your apprenticeship again? Sid's shoulders slumped as he stared anywhere but his mother's prying eyes. Well, fired is a strong word. I prefer the term gently let go. Of course, dear. He felt a gentle wing on his arm. Sid glanced down. His mom looked so tiny in comparison. The scribe, the blacksmith, even the wood furnishers. You've been let go from practically every apprenticeship job in our neighborhood. Sweetheart, I may not be as charismatic as your frog friend here, but please don't be afraid to speak to me if something's wrong. Nothing's wrong. Well, kinda? Guilt started creeping through his chest. They've been through this conversation countless times. I just can't get into any of these ordinary jobs. The thought of getting stuck indoors as a scribe for the rest of my life feels miserable. I want to get out there and see the world. Don't you want your son to succeed as a great and glorious adventurer? I know I have it in me to be somebody instead of another commoner out in the market district. Somebody great. Ilya's grip on his arm tightened as worried trepidation filled her face. Oh, Sid. I know this is difficult, but the reason your father and I work ourselves to the bone day in and day out is because we hope to create a better future for you. We work so hard because we hope you don't have to. I want you to be happy as well, but many adventurers often don't return home. The thought of you going out into the world alone. Ilya snapped her beak shut, shivering. Ah, Mom, don't worry, I'm the toughest cookie around. Are you really never gonna let me be an adventurer? Ever? The Adventurers Guild is just a short walk away in the Marauders District. It's so close I can practically taste it. Well, I suppose. Yes? Is that a yes? No. Ilya sighed as Sid emotionally deflated like a trampled balloon. Oh, don't give me those sad puppy eyes. He's not. His sprite didn't change. Your father and I had a long talk this morning and we came to a decision. He took a deep breath. If you're going out If you're going to go out doing wildly dangerous adventuring jobs, it would be a great comfort to your father if you had trusted friends at your side. If you find a few dependable friends to form an adventuring party with, I suppose you can talk to the Adventuring Guild. Because we live in an RPG. Sid perked up and then immediately groaned. Bold of you to assume I have friends in general. People always laugh at me. Well, perhaps if you stopped talking to your frog all the time. Betsy is a toad. Ilya sighed with a defeated smile and patted her son on the shoulder. This was impressive considering she could barely reach it, even when standing on her tiptoes. All right, dear. Why don't you get out of here while the day is still young? Go mingle about the Marauders District and see if you can make any friends. Oh, and before I forget, I packed you some snacks in case you get hungry later. Be sure to share them with your friends if you make any later today. Sid stood stunned while his mother stuffed several wrapped sandwiches into his tiny pockets. Wait, you're really giving me a chance? Thank you so much, Mom. I won't disappoint you. You never do. I love you, sweetheart. Sid was already prancing halfway down the street, practically vibrating with excitement. Love you too, Mom. Oh, and if you don't manage to find anyone on your adventuring party, your father's looking for an assistant at his cheese shop. And he's gone. Ilya clasped her hands together and tried to ignore the anxious knot tugging at her chest. She looked down at Betsy, croaking happily on her rock. Oh, wise frog, what do you think? What are the chances my son comes back a wiser and more sensible young man? Ribbit. Ilya sighed. I thought so. Need to take a drink real quick. Ooh. I mean, pause thoughtfully on the map for everyone to check it out. Yeah, that's the goal. I imagine that her goal here was to have him just go meet people, because with that would come connections, and with connections would come job opportunities, and he would just kind of have a healthier place in life without then going on to be like, because like the chances of meeting people is already a struggle. The chances of meeting a party of people that also want to then go out and be violent adventurers and risk their lives, even lower. But he doesn't know that. Church District, Grand Cathedral. The Grand Cathedral stood coldly against the morning air, the sun's harsh rays reflecting off its bright walls like jagged knives. Most of the inhabitants of the Grand Cathedral had already left the main hall to perform their daily duties, save one. He's a dork! A lone knight stood solid in an empty corner of the hall, her sword and shield drawn ready at her side. Her blade glinted off the morning sun in precise swings. Her stance and posture were as picture perfect as they were rigid and anxious. Artemi Johanna Gaucher resumed her daily training as a holy knight of the church, as she had done every day as far as she could remember. Her blade hand paused as cheerful voices echoed from one of the cathedral's side entrances. Some punk ass has shown up. Bishop Katrina glided elegantly into the main hall with a half-dozen church youths following closely behind a flock of ducklings. She carried an iron commanding presence as she directed the youths to their duties. The floors on the side halls will need a thorough sweeping, along with the entirety of the east wing staircase, understood? The church youths mumbled but nodded quietly. At the sight of the bishop, Artemi hastily sheathed her sword and bowed deeply. Bishop Katrina barely spared her a glance. A few of the church youths suddenly noticed her and stared. Hello? Artemi gave the small crowd a shy little wave. Most of the youths sneered and scrunched their noses. Several whispered amongst each other with less than kind words. Artemi dropped her hand to her side dejectedly. Why is she even here? All that little mutt ever does is pretend swing her sword around the cathedral all day while the rest of us do all the hard work. She's not even a real knight. Talk about unfair. Bishop Katrina's heels clicked sharply on the cathedral's stone floor as she turned towards them. Whispering is quite rude, children. The whole group bowed their heads apologetically. One of the bolder youths glanced up defiantly. Apologies, Your Excellency. We were just a little curious. Yes, it appears many of you are ignorant of certain important topics. You will surely know of the Creator's chosen. Throughout history, our great Creator has chosen champions worthy of her holy light to protect the Church from the evils of this world. It is prophesied that each chosen will play an important role in guarding the world from destruction. Our Artemy is one such chosen. On the night of her birth, they say a beam of celestial light descended from the heavens above and blessed Artemy with the Creator's most holy strength. That is why she carries such powerful celestial magic within her veins. The bishop's gaze was sharp and cold, and it did not flicker toward Artemy for a single moment as she told her tale. One day, when the Chosen awakens her full potential, she led... It's supposed to... Oh, there's a missing word. Got it. I was like, something's wrong here. She will lead the forces of our people and deliver the world from a terrible fate. Until that time comes, she is to continue training under the guidance of the Church. A few of the Church youths snickered at themselves as they glanced at Artemy standing awkwardly in a corner of the main hall. But Your Excellency, how does the Creator choose her champions? And, well... The youths exchanged nervous glances amongst themselves. Finally, one of them piped up. She's your daughter, isn't she? Are bishops supposed to have daughters? Bishop Katrina stared down at the youth coldly. For the first time today, her eyes drifted towards Artemy and carved through her like loathsome daggers. No. Artemy went rigid, her grip around her practice sword growing painfully tight. Artemy was a blessing bestowed upon me by the Creator herself. This sounds like a lie. I was wed to no man, and yet through an act of divine providence I was gifted with child. It was the greatest honor to become an instrument for the Creator's grand design. The children blinked, still thoroughly confused, but opted to simply accept her words. She's probably lying is my guess, and this is why she has this emotional connection, and also why she doesn't want to look at her daughter, because it's a shame that she's lying about, is that fact that she just did actually bed a man. But it also means that all three of our characters are having parental problems, which is, I had no idea that was the tone of this game at all. Let's see, Bishop Katrina sighed and clapped her hands together sharply. Now, enough idle chatter. Move along to your duties, all of you. The half-dozen youths nodded politely and scrambled out of the hall. A heavy silence descended upon the cathedral. Bishop Katrina turned towards Artemy's corner of the room. Artemy gulped and straightened her posture. Good morning, Mother. Daughter. Artemy felt her mother regard her coldly. She could never tell whether she was pleased or disappointed by something. When it came to herself, it was usually the latter. You were late to your swordsmanship practice this morning, so I heard. Artemy winced and bowed her head. Yes, but only by a few minutes. That is no excuse. No, it wasn't. It was literally not an excuse. You are the chosen one. The world has higher expectations of you than that of a mere knight. My apologies, Your Excellency. I will do better next time. You say that so often, and yet... Dread crept through Artemy's chest as her mother sighed and rubbed her temples. In any case, I saw that note you left at my door this morning. You wish to speak with me? Yes, Mother. Her heart thumped rapidly at her chest. Artemy inhaled and tried desperately to steady her breath. She never felt comfortable while speaking, especially to her mother. Your Excellency, I have been diligently training within the Grand Cathedral since I was a mere child to prepare for my role as the Creator's Chosen. But throughout all these years, I have rarely the opportunity to leave the walls of the cathedral, and not once have I stepped foot outside the church district. I understand the church feels this is best for my safety, but with no experience of the outside world, I feel very ill-prepared for my duty. That is why, Artemy nervously saluted and bowed. Your Excellency, I humbly request for a small task or mission outside of the church district. No. Bishop Katrina's reply was immediate. Artemy flinched, completely taken aback. Huh? May I ask why? Artemy gulped as Bishop Katrina stepped close. She circled around her like a predator wearing a cold, harsh glare. Look at you. You know what I see? Flaws. Nothing but flaws. Horrible, cowardly posture for a knight. You can barely even speak without falling apart like a nervous child. Why, mere minutes ago I witnessed you being too intimidated to even strike a conversation with the church youths. Don't even get me started on your training. Bishop Katrina's leaned forward until her face was just inches away. Artemy Johanna Gautier, from what I have seen, you are without a doubt the weakest chosen one throughout all of history. Her words pierced Artemy's chest like cold daggers. The young knight took a deep breath in a futile effort to steady herself. Do you wish to take on a mission outside of the church and become the laughingstock of the entire city? I don't think so. Stay in the church, continue your training, and do as you are told. Lest you bring more embarrassment to the church and our family name, daughter. But, I must take on missions if I'm to gain experience and improve. You are not even close to ready and you know it. But, are you going to continue such an uncouth argument here? In public? Right in the middle of the main hall? In one of the only buildings you're ever allowed to be in? This is exactly why you are not fit to leave the cathedral yet. That's better. We simply want what's best for you, daughter. Okay, so she's awful. She exclusively has, like, the roughest expressions in response to all this stuff. Like, it all comes across as cruel and controlling. Oh, is this a bad time? He's huge! The two of them immediately glanced up to see a large polar bear clad in high-ranking church armor approaching them with a jolly grin. Artemy immediately saluted. Knight Commander Gronk, good morning to you, sir. Bishop Katrina simply gave the polar bear a polite nod. Gronk laughed jovially and patted Artemy on the shoulder. It is a fine morning indeed. I hope I'm not interrupting anything of importance. Your Excellency, would it be alright if I borrowed dear Artemy for a few moments? By all means, this was an unproductive conversation to begin with. Excellent. Come along now, Artemy. We don't have all day. Yes, sir. This is a lot of characters early on. It's not dragging and like massively the way that like a lot of free version novels will often do when it comes to especially trying to introduce this many characters. This could have taken hours potentially in another story, but when I exclaim how many characters there are, I'm actually just like, damn, you had to prepare a lot of art for the first build, or had to go back and add art later. But this is way more character sprites than you usually want to introduce in the first hour, just from like a workload perspective. That's a lot of art. Knight Commander Gronk casually strolled by to the far side of the main hall, watching the bishop until she had left the room and was fully out of earshot. Artemy followed closely behind while fidgeting nervously. King Commander? You are a very busy man. It would be irresponsible of me to take up too much of your time. Gronk laughed and clapped her playfully on the back. Worry not. I always have a moment to spare for my finest pupil. I overheard that whole wretched conversation. Relax, young'un. Your mother frets way too much. Here's a little something to cheer you up. They were selling these fresh cinnamon chocolate chip cookies from the bakery in the market district. Help yourself. Artemy's stomach rumbled as she watched Gronk pull out a fresh box that filled the air with a pleasant, sugary scent. She shook her head nervously. Thank you, Knight Commander, but I must refuse. As the Creator's chosen, I must resist such worldly indulgences. Ah, come on. You used to love these. I'm no longer a child, Knight Commander. I must act as a true Holy Knight should. Well, I'm the commander of the Holy Knights, and I snack all the time. Well, that is very different. Knight Commander, you are an adult. You have things all figured out already. Gronk nearly choked on a chocolate chip. Mother says I must get my act together, or I will be a disappointment and shame to the title of the Creator's chosen. Gronk hummed cheerfully and tossed the box of cookies into Artemy's face. His deep laughter echoed through the main hall as Artemy scrambled to catch it before any pastries scattered on the floor. Well, as Knight Commander of the Church, I outrank your all-powerful mother, and I command you to loosen up and have a little fun, all right? It's difficult when the eyes of the world are watching your every move, but remember to be kind to yourself. I suppose. Artemy popped a small cinnamon cookie into her mouth. The rich, sweet flavors flooded her senses. A small smile spread across her face. She rarely had the opportunity to enjoy such treats within the confines of the cathedral. Ah, there's that smile. It's good to see my favorite pupil happy for once. Thank you, Knight Commander. Oh no, don't bow at me. Relax. I'm just expressing gratitude for your kindness. You are a very busy man with an endless number of tasks. You really shouldn't be wasting your limited time on me. There's no such thing. Speaking of my many tasks, I happened to overhear your conversation with Bishop Katrina earlier, and I believe I possess the solution to your woes. Gronk fumbled through his bag and pulled out a handsome leather box. I, Gronk Stormborn, Knight Commander of the Holy Church, have a mission for you. Really? The cookie box clattered to the floor as Artemy hastily gave a formal salute. A half-eaten chunk fell from her mouth and streaked a line of melted chocolate across her armor. I gladly accept, but what about Mother? I mean, Her Excellency's orders. Like I said before, I completely outrank her. I also completely agree with you. As the Creator's chosen, you'll need some experience with the world outside the church district if you're going to be a worthy protector. So, let's start off with a simple yet very important mission, shall we? Gronk slowly opened the leather box. Oh. This might be too important, Artemy gasped. Inside was an elegant black obsidian crown, its surface shimmering like the night sky. Encrusted upon its facade were 4 gleaming red rubies, their finely polished surfaces gleaming like freshly spilt blood. This was surely no ordinary piece of jewelry. Your task is to deliver this package to the prince at the royal palace. Apparently His Highness ordered this black crown to be specifically made for his collections and whatnot. This should be a fairly simple task, but it will be your first time stepping outside of the church district. Why not use this chance to get familiar with the city that you're supposed to be protecting? Go out and explore a bit. There's no rush. There's lots of great snack foods in the southern part of the market district. I am honored to be tasked with such an important mission. Thank you so much, Knight Commander. She gingerly held the small leather box and frowned. Excuse my ignorance, but why are we not addressing the prince as His Majesty? Ah, yes. The young prince is technically the ruler and true king of Axia ever since our late king and queen passed away several weeks ago. Creator, bless their souls. His Highness has decided to spend a year studying under the royal advisors and thoroughly learn his duties before attending a true coronation ceremony. The poor boy is still grieving over his parents' recent deaths. To think the kingdom expects him to take their place so readily. Ron shook his head. In any case, make sure this package gets to the royal palace by the end of the day. Are you ready? Artemy nodded furiously. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for this honor, Knight Commander. Excitement bubbled up in Artemy's chest as she clutched the handsome leather box. This was the perfect chance to explore the world she was destined to protect. As unfamiliar with the outside world as she was, this was just a simple delivery. What could possibly go wrong? I imagine the entire first chapter of the story is the crown going missing, and Artemy meeting the other two characters and forming a party to find the crown. It's gonna get stolen, isn't it? Oh look, it's all of the pictures of the characters I just said are gonna meet each other in the next 5 minutes. Oh, Artemy's completely lost. Oh, they're still going. Uh-huh. Oh, they're not gonna unlost, are they? Oh, that's a loop. Got it. Marauders District, Adventurers Guild. The Adventuring Guild lobby was bustling with activity as Cole weaved between the crowds and made his way to the bulletin board. Why was everyone here so goddamn tall? He could barely see the job postings all the way from down here. The crowd was packed like a school of sardines. Cole had to forcefully squeeze his way out to the front. He was pretty sure someone smacked his ass on the way over, not that he was complaining. Cole squinted at the bulletin board. Complete an Adventuring Guild job and bring home some booty. Right. Easier said than done, Papa. Most of these jobs asked for an adventuring party of 2 or more people. He supposed he could drag one of Papa's men from the Bonebreakers to help him out, but he couldn't cast any magic with them around, or surely they'd tattle of Papa. Cole could perhaps avoid casting magic on the job, but then he'd be fairly useless and the men would tell Papa he was a lazy freeloader. Ugh, what a pain. Cole squeezed his way back out of the crowd. A few lecherous men cupped his ass on the way out, their hands caressing under the thin cloth holding a small loincloth together. Cole grinned and reveled in the intention. All the men in the Bonebreakers were fairly open with their wants and desires, and Cole was no different. Had he not been busy worrying about his task for the day, he might have even given a few of the adventuring men in the guild a little more attention. Cole smacked his own face and shook his head furiously. Now's not the time to get horny. Focus. I can't go home empty-handed and disappoint Papa. What should I do? His ears suddenly perked up at the sound of bemused mumbles. The receptionist at the counter groaned as she stared towards the Adventurers Guild entrance. Why the long face, pal? Oh, hello again, Cole. Hope you're not offering services to adventurers under the table again. I refuse to clean up another one of your messes. Ah, that was one time. I'm on my best behavior today. Anyway, what's up? The receptionist sighed. It's nothing, really. That suspicious fella is lurking at our front door again. He's usually outside ogling our adventurers as they come in, but today he's actually inside, talking to people. Doesn't look like he's having much luck, though. The Adventuring Guild doesn't have time to deal with fanboys. What are you talking about? That tall badger by the entrance. See him? The one who looks like he's having a breakdown. You don't say. Well, that was easy. The tall badger was indeed lurking by the guild entrance, watching all the adventurers strolling by with wild admiration. He was buzzing with nervous energy and begging for the ear of anyone who strolled past. Too bad he could barely string together a coherent sentence through his anxious stammering. Cole strained to hear what he was blabbering as he approached. Hello, is anyone here looking for a new party member? I might not have any experience, but I'm a pretty tough dude. Nobody? I promise I'll work hard. Anybody? The tall badger's shoulders slumped as his pleas continued to be ignored. Wow. It's gotta be the saddest display I've ever seen. Huh? Dude, if you're gonna try to sell yourself to an adventuring party, at least put a little backbone into it. Stop stammering, stand up straight, puff out that big chest of yours, and talk like you own the place. Nobody's gonna hire a second-guessing greenhorn unless they're planning on paying you with exposure. Which you're already halfway there. And I'm paying you with exposure right now. Not wearing anything. Oh, right. The badger scrambled to straighten up his posture self-consciously. Cole quietly whistled. Now that he could see him up close, the badger did have a very nice chest. Not bad looking at all. Sorry, I'm kind of new around here, and it's a little nerve-wracking. I just really need to join somebody's adventuring party, or else I'm going to be stuck doing commoner apprenticeships, or run away to scribe's office for the rest of my life. Eh? Cole squinted and scratched his chin thoughtfully. What's your name, kid? Kid? The name's Sid Shrikewood. Nice to meet you. The guy looked like a real simpleton. A little desperate, with more enthusiasm than sense, not to mention very inexperienced. And probably very easy to push around, Cole thought to himself with a sneer. Oh, I see the dynamic we're going for now. A small plan started to form in his head. Well, kid, my name's Cole Bonebreaker. The badger's jaws dropped. Bonebreaker? As in Marrow Bonebreaker? The greatest mercenary captain in all of Axia? Yep, that's my pops. Oh. Sid peered down at him doubtfully. I, thought you'd be a little taller. Excuse you? It's not very smart to be rude to someone who's about to offer you a deal. Huh? What sort of deal? Cole crossed his arms with a grin. You want to join an adventuring party, huh? Why don't you form one with me? Wait, really? An inexperienced greenhorn like you would be pretty useless on the market. I can refer you to my papa's mercenary company. We'll set you up with some combat training and equipment. You probably don't even have a weapon right now, do you? Sid was practically vibrating with excitement. You'd really do that for me? Working for Marrow Bonebreaker of all people. This is like a dream come true. Cole pressed a finger to his lip to shush him. He leaned closer to the badger, his face twisting into a sly smirk. And in return for my great generosity, you're gonna work directly for me. All your work, payment, and jobs are to go through me before anyone else in the Adventuring Guild or Bonebreaker Mercenary Company. Understood? The badger nodded furiously with a grin, obviously too excited to even think through the details. You're getting pyramided. This is going to be easier than you thought. Whatever you say, you're the boss. I'm happy to do any kind of adventuring work you got. He's been practicing this, clearly. Anything you need to get done, Sid Shrikewood's got your back, boss. Cole chuckled. Good, good. Cole leaned forward and beckoned Sid to come closer with a waggle of his finger. He pulled the tall badger down to face level, the two of them so close that their noses almost touched. Sid gulped nervously. Yeah? What's up, boss? Listen here, Sid Shrikewood. While you're working with me, there's going to be a few hard rules in place. The first of which is, I can cast magic. If you ever mention a word of this to my papa, or anyone in the Bonebreaker Mercenary Company, I will snuff out any chance you have of being a half-decent adventurer like the world's most pathetic candle. Follow my directions, and I can guarantee your future as an adventurer will be filled with success and glory. Sound like a fair deal? Despite the sheer size difference between the two, Sid visibly shuddered as he nodded slowly. Of course. Sounds simple enough. You're the boss. Glad we're in agreement. Cole was practically grinning ear to ear as he led the nervous badger towards the Adventurers Guild reception desks. This might actually work out better than I thought, Cole mused cheerfully. I love the completely random number of periods after whenever there's an ellipsis. It's time for an ellipses. It's never 3. It's just a fun random number. However long they felt like holding it down. The next hour of Sid's morning was spent in a dizzying blur. He could feel his heart throbbing with excitement when his little hyena dragged him into the Adventurers Guild reception to register themselves as a new adventuring party. There's an overwillingness to include the entirety of long names of things that we don't need to say all of, like just reception or registration, but adventuring guild's reception, like every time, just like how earlier it was always like the Crow's Roost, whatever it was called, like it was the Bird Names Roost Bar and Tavern, like full name, like it's like we're being forced by the Disney Corporation to say the exact brand name every time. It's like, okay, you can say a short version after the first few. It gets more awkward the more times the full name repeats. Sid barely paid any attention during all the boring paperwork talk at the front desk. The idea of working with the son of Marrow Bonebreaker, of all people, was too ludicrous to even hope for, but here he was. His first morning of being an official adventurer was spent beside the son of his idol. Sid felt giddy just thinking about it. The kid was a lot scrawnier than he imagined, though. Nothing about him really screamed son of the greatest and most heroic mercenary of all time. Mom always said to never judge people by their appearance, though. Who knows? Maybe this little guy was a hero in the making. Come on, kid. You ready for your first adventuring job? Of course. What do you have in mind? Are we gonna catch some bandits? Protect an heir from their nobility? Slay some demons? Sid's excitement immediately deflated. What happened? Also, are these like 3D environments with like a filter over them or something? It seems, I feel like there's like a consistency to it. Why am I spending hours loading crates into a wagon? This isn't what I signed up for. More importantly, why aren't you helping? Light snores rumbled from the inside of the wagon as his new boss yawned and stretched. Cole Bonebreaker was lazily sprawled across a seat like a basking cat, cheerfully plucking his loot while Sid heaved another heavy load of cargo into the wagon. Hey, who's the boss of our little adventuring party again? You're the one who agreed to these terms. My twig arms wouldn't be very helpful here anyway. I know, I just figured we'd be out in the city doing cool adventuring stuff instead of mundane labor. Sid remembered the crushing disappointment when Cole pulled the most boring-looking job from the Adventuring Guild bulletin board. Delivery help needed. Transport cargo from Craftsman Square to shop in Town Square. Wagon will be provided. I like how the bulletin didn't say anything specific about where, when it's literally the only source of information they have. They're summarizing it for us, but it's quoted, so that means that it's what it said. So it should probably have an address. And so the next hour was spent loading crates of arcane crystals to transport Soul's arcane curiosities in the town square. Okay, there we go. But that wasn't in the quote. Cole sat up and stretched leisurely with a yawn. Well, first of all, what'd you expect? This is a job. Like all jobs, it's gonna be boring as hell sometimes. This ain't a fairy tale. What do you think this is? Some sort of wish fulfillment furry gay porn simulator thing where people fight dragons and then Cole glanced at him skeptically. Plus, I ain't bringing an untrained greenhorn on a dangerous mission right off the bat. Today, we're gonna take things nice and easy. Bring home a little coin and avoid being a disappointment, capiche? Sid's shoulders slumped with a pout. I thought this was a good chance to get away from my commoner life. His new boss sighed almost pitifully. Hey, keep your chin up, kid. You're still doing a real important job here. We're acting as guards for all this cargo in case someone tries to steal stuff. Crime's been on the rise ever since the king and queen croaked. And the city watch is useless as usual. Having a big buff guy like you at the helm does wonders for our safety. Can't do this without you. Also pretty easy in the eyes. Sid couldn't help but perk up at the praise, though he wasn't sure what Cole mumbled under his breath. Really? You mean it? Sure. Why not? Now, hurry up and load the rest of that cargo. Will do, boss. In fact, I'm just finished. The whole wagon shook as Sid hoisted the last wooden crate onto the back. Cole squinted. The shopkeep gave us a wagon, but no horses. How are we supposed to haul all this junk to town square? Sid stared at him blankly. What are you talking about? This is a horseless carriage. It's powered by magic. Look how happy he is. He's literally never looked like that. Cole's face lit up and he immediately scampered to the front of the wagon like a child enticed by candy. I thought he was gonna make Sid do it. I thought maybe it was his plan. Magic? Really? How's it work? Sid scratched his head as he hopped into the wagon next to his boss. What a strange little guy. You really don't know? Pretty much everyone uses arcane crystals for this kind of thing these days. Even folks who don't have talent for magic like me could use them. Sid gently tapped a crystal embedded onto the wood of the wagon. Suddenly, the crystal hummed with a gentle glow. A sharp, almost citrus scent of magic filled their noses as the wheels of the wagon slowly moved on its own, carrying its passengers and cargo down the street. Cole watched him with utter fascination. Wait, you're telling me everyone uses these crystal doohickeys nowadays? I mean, yeah. Axia is the kingdom's biggest exporter of arcane crystals, after all. The royal family got their riches from mining them at the base of Mount Zenithar. Surprised you never used one before. Cole scowled and flopped onto his back as the wagon slowly rolled down the cobblestone street. I'm surprised too, honestly. Pop is a real old-fashioned magic hater. Nobody in the guild's allowed to do anything magic-y without Papa grilling their ass for an hour. And not in the fun way. Don't say that about your dad. I know everyone else is into it, but... Magic is such a widespread thing, though. Heck, even my mom knows a little and casts a few simple cantrips to help clean the kitchens. You can do magic too, right? Are you gonna get in trouble if Meryl finds out? I know. Cole groaned and buried his face in his hands. In all honesty, probably not. Papa's gonna get that disappointed look on his face, but pretend everything's great and I'm perfect the way I am, blah blah blah. But he's still gonna be disappointed on the inside. The same way he's disappointed that his son grew up to be a weak and spineless pipsqueak, despite the fact that he's given me everything a father could possibly give. That was a lot of honesty from Cole that I wasn't expecting. Up front, with Sid. That's even worse than him hating me. At least I can call him an asshole if he's angry. Aw, but I hear Bonebreaker's such a big loving guy. Uh-huh. In contexts. I'm sure if you have a chat with him, he'd understand. I know your dad better than you, having never met him. The short hyena scowled at him. Hey, you're supposed to be working for me, not be my life coach. Keep your eyes on the road. Alrighty, yeesh. As their wagon approached a corner, Sid rubbed his palm against the crystal embedded in the wood. The wagon slowly turned right with the motion of his hand. Cole immediately leaned over his lap to get a better look. Whoa, wait a sec, let me try driving. You just rub the crystal thingy and the cart moves with it? Sid suddenly found himself with an overly excited hyena on his lap as Cole curiously prodded the hyena in the... as Cole curiously prodded the crystal in the wooden floor. Sid's face felt oddly warm. Was he catching something? Does he not know he's gay? He's about to find out that he's gay really fast. He shook his head furiously to clear his thoughts. Something like that. Tell you what, if I let you drive the wagon, will you tell me more about Bonebreaker? Cole glanced up at him, unimpressed. Hey, who's the boss of this party again? I'll mess with the crystal doohickey if I want to. Cole squinted up at him suspiciously. You're awfully obsessed with Papa. You aren't one of those fanboys that keeps clogging up our mail, are you? No. Well, I may have sent a letter or two occasionally. Hamish would like to have a word with you. He's tired of scavenging our bills from all the letters from people keep asking Papa to step on them. Okay, we went there. I never wrote anything like that. Who in the world would want to be stepped on? I haven't figured out my sexuality yet. We'll get there in the next few chapters. Cole snorted. Oh, you poor innocent baby. You'd be surprised. Papa has all kinds of admirers. Well, I'm definitely not the stepping kind, yet. I've just been following Merrow's work for a while. The bards in my mom's tavern sing tales about him all the time. That could be the other kind of tale, too. Cole glanced up from lying on Sid's lap and tilted his head curiously. What kind of stories they singing? I've always wondered what regular folks think of Papa. Merrow's pretty much a local legend. I grew up listening to stories about him. The bards sing about how Merrow started out as an infamous bandit who ransacked the nobility of their riches alongside his royal right-hand man, Hamish. The two of them inspired countless worn and weary men to their cause. Their group grew unstoppable as they pilfered riches from haughty nobles and gave back to the broken and destitute corners of Axia. Merrow Bonebreaker spearheaded operations that single-handedly breathed life into the poverty-stricken communities everywhere. The nobles and city watch were helpless with his might. Axia's knights spent countless years trying to throw him in prison, but they never managed to even slow him down. He's been hailed as a hero ever since. Well, it depends on what bards you listen to. I've seen a few performances in the church district where folks are dancing around bonfire at Papa's burning effigy. About that, how in the world did Merrow manage to become an official mercenary guild without the city watch knocking at his door? Oh, they've tried. The city watch and holy knights barely stood a chance against Papa. His men were too well coordinated and basically danced circles around anyone who tried to catch him. Pretty sure Hamish was the brains behind the operations, unfortunately. After years of pillaging the rich and rebuilding the neglected parts of the city, the royal family struck a deal with Papa. They were basically like, please stop stealing and destroying our shit. In return, we'll absolve you and your men of all your crimes and start actively funding the malnourished parts of the city like we're fucking supposed to. Please, please, please stop humiliating us in front of the entire city. And so, Papa agreed and officially formed the Bonebreaker Mercenary Company. Speaking of, I got a question for you. What do the normal people think about Papa's name? What, Merrow Bonebreaker? It's a rough and tumble name befitting a great mercenary. Cole snorted comically. It's dumb, and this is coming from his son. I have a running theory that Papa renamed himself at some point thinking it was cool. Well, that is one of the many rumors that the bards have been singing about. Oh? What other rumors are there? He's called a Bonebreaker because he's a power bottom. Well, one story has it that Merrow was a savage child raised in the woods by feral animals. Another conflicting account says that he was a nobleman's child who ran away and became a bandit in rebellion. Pfft, bards do love spinning their tall tales. A giddy grin hung on Sid's face as he daydreamed about his idol. What a legend, even though I don't know what he's actually done or hasn't done. One day I hope to perform great heroic feats just like him. Cole laughed and rolled his eyes in exasperation. You really are a fanboy. So what? I just really admire his work. By the way, it's my turn to ask some questions. Let's just keep this exposition scene going for a while. We had too much momentum before. What's it like growing up as the son of Merrow Bonebreaker? Must be a lot more exciting than us commoners. Dude, he already kind of hinted at this. Do you get to do cool missions all the time? Are you constantly going on adventures and saving people? It's cramped. Huh? Sid was startled as Cole suddenly rolled off his lap and crossed his arms with a frown. He was in his lap the whole time. Papa and Hamish are the only ones in the guild with their own bedroom. All I've got is a little hammock in the living quarters with the rest of the mercs. The boys ain't exactly quiet. Not a shred of privacy whatsoever. Aw, at least you're never lonely. You're an only child, aren't you? Hey, you're an only child too. I grew up with 30 other mercenary men in the Bonebreaker Guild. That's basically a whole set of annoying siblings. Cole glared at the ceiling of the wagon with a deep frown. Everyone's got their eyes on me, expecting me to fill Merrow Bonebreaker's shoes. But I'm a tiny guy. Papa's got huge feet. He doesn't even wear shoes. He doesn't even wear shoes. I want to make Papa proud, but I'm not exactly the spitting image of a hero, am I? Cole's sigh echoed through the interior of the wagon. Sid glanced at the small hyena quietly. His brow was furrowed with deep frustration. It was simple to see these thoughts plagued him frequently. I feel like this is a missed opportunity narratively to do this. Like, it seemed like it was obvious that this is a scenario where Cole strings Sid along as a potentially heroic figure, and he can, like, manipulate him in order to profit. He can keep looking like he's the impressive mercenary that his dad wants him to be, and he can live through the dream of impressing his dad through Sid. But Sid doesn't know he's doing that, and instead you'd have Sid looking up to Cole and kind of being given the runaround because he just wants to be an adventurer and he thinks that this is it, and he can keep lying to him about what it takes to be a mercenary and kind of be fleecing him of most of the profits, and like you can like there's this whole arc where he's a fraud essentially, and we would have fun with the narrative irony of the fact that we know that Cole. I need to drink water. Damn. Like, in that scenario, we get to have fun with the idea that, like, we know that Cole is a fraud, but he can, like, you have this paradox of, like, the huge guy looking up to the little guy because he thinks he's the experienced adventurer, and that seemed to be what they were setting this up for. But now Cole's just admitting everything about how he's a disappointment and he's too small to be that helpful in most of these situations and blah blah blah. And that, like, feels like a whole, like, chapter is being skipped that could be done story-wise, where you have this dynamic between these characters and then the reveal eventually and them having to reconcile with that conflict and so on. Like, they're kind of getting too chummy and honest too fast, having not even done a single job together yet and so on, and I feel like that's maybe going too fast for what was set up before, and kind of like it unsets up some dynamic by not actually spending time on it. Or if they do end up doing that, it's weirder because Cole's already been too honest about how he's this, like, insecure weakling that doesn't live up to his father's expectations. Like, so much of it's, like, open now that it'd be almost weird to try to do that dynamic because, like, it's too obvious why he's doing it now. I don't know. Sympathy welled in Sid's chest. A light silence hung in the air for several long moments, broken only by the rhythmic grind of wooden wheels rolling across the cobblestone road. Sid reached over and gingerly patted Cole on the head. "What are you doing?" Cole shot him a glare, as though debating whether to bite his fingers off or let him continue. I just thought that stressed out look doesn't fit you, boss. You may not be very heroic now, but it's never too late to grow. And hey, you got me now. If you ever need a big guy to swing an axe for you, I've got your back. Yeah, it's interesting. He's really loyal, apparently, despite it not being earned, beyond just the fact that he gave him attention, essentially, and any kind of inn but that inn hasn't paid off yet. So, like, this trustingness is a little odd, whereas, like, it would be meaningful. It'd be more meaningful after a whole arc and a conflict and a resolution and so on, especially if it's a resolution where like, Sid becomes indebted to Cole because Cole does actually, like, stick his neck out for him and save him in some way that he can, and then they would become more honest with each other over time. We'll both become something we can be proud of. The small hyena stared up at him as Sid continued to ruffle his hair. A small smile slowly twitched across his face. It felt strangely genuine. Oh, great, an optimist. Guess I'll be counting on you from now on. Don't let me down, good big guy. Sid's chest felt warm as he nodded earnestly. Of course. You can count on me, boss. And I'm still lost. Well, that's our setup for like an hour and a half, so that's probably going to be our episode for today. But if you want to check out Temptations Ballad, you can find the link in the description if you're an adult who's old enough to play adult games. Because I believe this game contains adult content, even beyond the suggestions so far. I don't think it's been updated for a couple of years, but we'll see what goes there. I don't really curate whether or not I cover games that are like actively super updated or ones that are kind of dead or so on, but this developer is juggling two different stories. This one and the game, I think it was called Repeat, I'm pretty sure, and that's its own journey doing both. And I believe they do all the art for both of them, it seems, because the art style is recognizable. So damn, that's a commitment. Either way, thanks for watching like always, guys. Check out the link in the description, both for the game and also for the playlist of all these other Let's Tries, because I've done dozens of them now, of videos like this, of the furry visuals. Wow, I can't speak. I need to go to bed. Of all the furry visual novels every evening. Jesus Christ, it's the evening. I'm doing them once a week, most of the time, except for when there's downtime because of other stuff. I am falling apart. See you next time. Bye.